Welcome to another episode of the Healthcast. I'm your host, Phil Zappone, where we explore telehealth and AI in healthcare specifically, and how that overlaps and what the future looks like. And I'm really pleased to have Victor Brown on today, CEO of Xcellentlife. He's been involved in this scene for over a decade, and excited to pick your brain and learn some things from you today. So thanks for coming on, Victor.
I really appreciate having a chance to have a conversation with you, Phil, as a part of your podcast. Really excited and look forward to sharing more about kind of the history and the evolution of Excellent Life, a little bit about my background and that of the team, and anything that kind of revolves around healthcare. I'm naturally pretty interested in being a part of. So thank you.
You bet, you bet. So we spoke briefly before. Are you an electrical engineer? Is that right? And then you made a transition to working in the healthcare industry?
That is correct. So I spent the first really 11 years of my career for one company. I worked as an engineer, starting out electrical engineer, and then transitioned to a marketing role, but ended up working a total of 20 years in the energy sector. So it was a really kind of interesting transition to start moving into healthcare and to do so with launching my own company.
Yeah. And the catalyst was you had without getting too personal, you had a family member who was ill, and then you saw some gaps in healthcare, and that was kind of the catalyst for you to make this change.
Yeah, and so I don't mind elaborating a little bit. So yeah, I spent 20 years in the energy sector. Thought I was going to retire. Everything made sense to me. Then my dad was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, so I naturally started getting more involved in his health and his, wellness. And at that point in time, I realized healthcare was completely broken. And in my mind, it was really profound because for 20 years, the world made sense to me. And so I knew that we would never say, hey, here's a nuclear reactor. Let's let that nuclear reactor start to melt down. And then once that happens, we'll go in and try to correct the issue. We would never say that, thank goodness. But that same kind of ridiculous approach that I described in my mind was kind of the standard that we bear in healthcare. Everything's reactionary in healthcare. We use very limited amounts of data that we have access to actually protect human vitality. And so I knew that in theory, the human body is very much like a sophisticated electrical network, so that it could be monitored and understood in the same way, in a very granular way. And so that it would give us the opportunity to understand the signatures of illness well before those illnesses manifested themselves as conditions. And so that became the vision for Excellent Life. That prompted me to action. And now I think about, that is a part of my purpose as a human being.
Yeah, love that. I love that. It's connected to who you are. That's awesome. Take me from that awareness to actually to the journey with your company, and from idea to where you're at.
Sure. So first, I'm very action oriented. I'm going to be more prone to take a step forward and tell you what I find out about that one step versus spend, 1,000 hours trying to figure out what's the right step. I just am more action oriented. However, I did prepare enough through my former life of understanding what it takes to get products to markets, because that's what I had done for 20 years. And so as soon as I knew that I wanted to found a company, I knew it was really important to put the right team around me. And while I do have a technical background, I had not coded in a while. So I wanted to make sure that I brought someone that was an expert in AI, predictive analytics on board. I was able to find that person. I had not had any healthcare experience at that point in time. So I reached out to a good friend of mine who was a board certified anesthesiologist, and got some great insights from her. She eventually became a part of the team because she was very excited about kind of the idea overall. And so I spent time putting the right team around me. That was kind of the first step when I realized that I wanted to really go full speed ahead. So both Dr. Lakeisha Crawford, who's a board certified anesthesiologist, became chief medical officer, and Samuel Berntaski, who is an expert in AI and predictive analytics, who has co-authored 3 textbooks, and 2 of them have been published by SAS, also became a member of the team as chief technology officer. They're amazing people, amazing individuals. And later, we brought Mr. Van Pennock on board. So I put a strong team in place, was essentially the first step.
I can see where your perspective would be refreshing. I have a background as an ER nurse before I was a nurse practitioner. And sometimes I would look at the lady who was running the window, the registration lady, and I would ask, just real quick, with limited medical information, is that person sick or not sick? And she'd feel, if they can come to the window and be complaining and raising their voice, they're probably not sick, versus somebody who maybe in the corner was more concerning to her. And I valued that because sometimes we can be so deep in the trenches, maybe not seeing things clearly. So it sounds like you had a refreshing idea that resonated with some of these people that you got together with.
Yeah, I think it was a refreshing idea, but even at kind of the lower level, it's a really practical approach. And, I think in general, like when you start looking at kind of the math behind our approach, there are a lot of analogies to help people understand why it's really important to take this approach. If we're healthy and in general, we're taking, pretty good care of our health, at best, we're probably going to the doctor once a year. We're healthy. So if you think about that one doctor visit, that's one data point. Even though you're collecting a lot of information, there's still one data point. And our healthcare system has been built on a collection of one data point. But then when you're unhealthy, you're going to the doctor more consistently. So you're collecting a little more data.
Yeah.
But even with that said, it's very sparse data. That is very similar or akin to watching a low definition TV where you're trying to describe the movie that you're watching or the show that you're watching, but you only have a few pixels to evaluate. Compare that to a high definition TV where the picture is very clear because you're sampling so much data, you can understand what is happening much faster. And so with technology and in particular with AI, you can understand the signatures of illness well before they present themselves. It's just a much more practical approach you have to take to capturing the information and then analyzing that and presenting it in a way that's meaningful to the individual and care providers.
Yeah. So take me from there. What does excellent life offer? What do you guys do really well?
So, one, we take an approach that's much more practical by understanding health in a more granular way. So, our primary solution and focus is that of being a corporate wellness platform. Certainly, there are more applications that could be addressed given the nature of our platform. But strategically, the idea as we grow our business is to focus on this one area where for self-insured employers, they have a very high cost that's associated with lack of health across their workforce. On average, they're paying about $2,000 uh, per year per employee that takes away from their bottom line. That's a controllable cost. So when we go in, we can provide a solution with the software as the centerpiece of the solution that drives a much healthier workforce. One, bring visibility to where their health is versus where it should be, drive some behavior for the individual, but we enhance that behavior change by incentivizing through gamification that particular employee improving their health. And we send rewards in the form of monetary rewards directly to their bank account. So, in combination of the right incentive structure and visualizing health in more real time, we can drive a much greater outcome for the entire workforce. And so that's what we're focused in on right now. That's our target. As we grow in that area, we'll look to expand into other verticals and other applications given the nature of our platform and what it can do.
Yeah, that sounds cool. Vic, can you tell me more about the gamification? Like maybe give me an example.
Sure. So, and I'll give you an example and also draw a distinction. So, for gamification, we have these digital wellness competition, and in those competition, our platform naturally or by default can look at 38 different health metrics. We evaluate the improvement in a metric, and the improvement of a metric will get an individual point. So that means that the scoring for the competition is establishing a baseline that is a different baseline per individual. We're only looking for the improvement. Well, who can improve the most? The people who are at least healthy. So
Sure.
that means that they have the opportunity to gain the greatest amount of points. So they're naturally incentivized um, to actually be a part of the competition because they actually stand a better chance of winning, which is one of the distinctions in the way our application and our gamification is designed, because we recognize that the people who are least healthy bear the greatest cost on the system, and they also need to improve their health the most. And so when you match the reward, which is a much bigger reward in our gamification monetarily compared to what has traditionally been a part of the equation, you see a much greater behavior change. And so that is essentially what we're doing. To draw a more specific distinction, that in corporate wellness, you generally see wellness platforms or corporations incentivize individuals to be a part of that. that program by providing perks, discounts, coupons, money that typically has to go back to a health savings account. If you total all of that up, you're going to get about $1,500 across the year that everybody that's participating, has access to. Well, if you think about it, if you're employed, how much is $1,500 to you? That's not a meaningful amount of money, especially when it's spread out throughout the year. So it doesn't really drive a lot of behavior change. So if you were to take that same pot of incentives and reallocate it and say, okay, we're not paying everyone, $1,500. We're just going to pay, the winners, the ones who improve the most. When you have the people who are least healthy, who have the greatest opportunity to win, then when they win, let's say they win a competition for that week and they stand a chance of winning $1,000 or $5,000 for that week, coming from the same, budget, then that's a much more meaningful impact you have across the organization. So that's a major distinction in why we're able to drive greater results.
Yeah, yeah, I like that. And the wins would be both for that individual and then for that company also. They're incurring less. The person's getting healthier. There's less healthcare costs, and ideally, I think we mentioned this in our last conversation. Happier, healthier employee. Is that right?
Absolutely. Everybody benefits. The employee, which is essentially why I founded the company to begin with, is to provide value for individuals, given the experiences that I had with my dad in the healthcare system and how I think a lack of being proactive, impacts his life still today. Understanding that when we put at the centerpiece the individual and bringing value to the individual, that those are the solutions that are much more efficient and much more effective. Now, certainly, we have to make it valuable for the payer, which is the business of the corporation. But ultimately, when you can offer a lot of value for the individual who will be using the solution every single day, then ultimately, I think you have a much better and much more practical solution.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. What are some of the either metrics or diagnoses that you guys prioritize? I imagine it's blood pressure, maybe blood sugar, is maybe diabetes, probably a big one, hypertension. Is that some of the things that you guys focus on?
Yes, those are some big ones. BMI is also one that we look at, and an activity level. We've noticed that like if you have like a higher BMI and also low activity level, couple that with family history, that is a strong indication that you could be at risk. You could easily make some adjustments there just in lifestyle and diet. So when we can focus on that and then bring the right incentives to the equation, then the opportunity to really affect health and also cost is pretty incredible.
What have some of the biggest challenges been that you guys have faced over the years?
Yeah, the biggest challenge is being able to really be an innovation leader and thought leader in the face of having limited resources. So that means that as fast as technology is changing, they're certainly bringing in new innovations and new technology. We want that to be part of our DNA. But in order to do that without the resources that we like to have, we've had to be very creative. And so that's always um, uh, an exercise of figuring out how to get from point A to point B, and creativity's had to be part of the equation. My goal and is that in the near future, the resource level changes substantially, and we don't have to be, while creativity is a great asset, a great attribute, we don't have to always lean on creativity to get from point A to point B. We actually have the resources to operationalize, and make really efficient the way we navigate our growth.
Yeah, yeah. Is your market the individual, or is it maybe it's not even, I'm thinking that it's not health clinics per se, it's more corporations that want to improve the health of their employees. Is that what your market is?
That's our focus right now. So corporate wellness solution. And yes, it is true that we can offer value to medical clinics, practitioners to provide a solution to their patient base that would essentially get them more value. But as a strategy for the growth of our organization, the idea is to really do one application really well, have a really, deep focus on this particular beachhead, gain some traction there, and then expand from there into other verticals and other applications.
Yeah. And what's the how far is the reach for excellent life? Are you just in your community? Is it across the nation? Where are things at these days?
Well, we're a software company that we feel like from day one is the mindset is to be a global company. I came from a very large global company where I spent my first 11 years. So we look at clients that are geographically dispersed. Today, not so much clients, but we have partners that are geographically dispersed. Panasonic is a stakeholder in Excellent Life. Nokia is a stakeholder in Excellent Life. So they're both in Asia. We have a relationship with an organization that is looking to help Excellent Life launch an entity in Brazil to
Yeah, man.
start looking at the Brazilian market.
Yeah.
And obviously having Northwestern Mutual, which is another billion-dollar company, be a stakeholder as well, gives us a lot of tentacles in terms of strategic partners and avenues to growth. And so, long answer to your question, but I guess the short answer is that we're not just a regional or you know,
Yeah.
you know, focused on any one particular area.
That sounds great. Yeah. What are some of the trends that you're seeing, especially as um, just AI? It just in my world, it seems like AI has been in conversation maybe 24 months, probably longer than that for others. But you've been in this a lot longer. What are some changes that you're seeing, or maybe things that are on the horizon?
Sure. Good question. And there's a lot that's changing, a lot that's happening. AI is going to be disruptive in a lot of industries. And so I think that most organizations are recognizing that it's coming and that it's really here. And a lot of them are trying to make the adjustment to how they're going to operate, leveraging AI and utilizing it to fulfill that mission, whatever that mission is. And so we're seeing adoption rates of AI empowered solutions increase, and that's going to continue to increase. The impact of that, if we take the right approach to what we develop in the world of AI, the impact of that can be actually lengthening life, reduce incident rates of illness, really value across humanity. If we implement it incorrectly, uh, then there's just as great of a downside. So, fortunately, I think there are a lot of really smart people who are actively working to create frameworks which will serve to guide the proper creation of AI tools and the proper utilization application of AI tools. Fortunately, to be part of a coalition for innovation that's spearheaded by LG or LG Nova, which is the innovation arm of LG, where they brought together a group of kind of innovators to write what they call the blueprints for the future. So it's a collection of three different writings, one of them clean tech, one of them AI, and another one health tech. And I co-authored two chapters. One of them revolving around the impact of AI in healthcare, and then another chapter, the impact of AI with regards to wellness coaching. And I say that to say that as a part of the overall process and the collection of all of the authors, it is validation that a lot is happening really fast. So I would encourage others to check out that publication. It has a lot of insight. It's a lot of reading, but very, very helpful in understanding some of the innovations that are shaping the future. They have a website dedicated to kind of their innovation arm. And then the publication itself, which you can download from that website, is called The Blueprints for the Future. You can also download separately the one for clean tech, the one for AI, and also the one for health tech.
Similar question, somewhat similar question. Are you seeing more commonality in diagnoses in human conditions or human illness, or are you seeing things change? Like, are you seeing diabetes across the globe worsening across the globe, or are you seeing some in your time? Are you seeing some things subsiding or decreasing and other things increasing, like lack of activity? Any trends there?
I don't know that I'm seeing any trends that are directly related to innovations that are coming online. I think it's a little early to determine the impact of those innovations. I think overall, from the research that I've done and what I've seen, that there's a lot of consistency in terms of like the major issues that impact the world with diabetes, with type 2 diabetes, with cancer, with obesity. Obviously, different cultures and different communities have kind of greater or lesser rates of that because of our diets. But in terms of having an impact or the ability to have an impact, that's what's so promising. Because regardless of where you are in the world, these innovations that are coming online have the ability to really, really improve health and to prevent some of the illnesses that have been robbing our society of so many brilliant lives and just quality of life for people who are having to live and manage a condition.
Yeah. I like that. I like what you said, and I like that it's I can hear that sense of purpose in your voice. So good for you, Victor. That's cool. Okay, where can so aside from your website, or where would I direct people if they wanted to learn more about Excellent Life? If they heard, if people overhear this podcast and they wanted to hear more about maybe getting their employer on board, or I was fortunate enough years ago. I had mentioned that I had participated in, not quite, it wasn't software related, but it was when you were onboarded. There was a wellness program that they put us through, and I thought it was really cool and innovative and impactful. So while I have a little bit of experience there, where could someone learn more about Excellent Life? How would they get a hold of you?
Yeah, our website's going to be a great place to start. I love having a conversation in general about healthcare, and certainly where there's an opportunity to bring on a client or a partner. So certainly reaching out to me directly. I'm always open to that as well. Anywhere on LinkedIn, Victor Brown, CEO of Excellent Life. I'm not, really hard to find there,
Yeah.
and very, very open to creating a dialogue and forging a relationship. Oftentimes I find that I'm learning something that I can apply in a helpful way, or even if it's an opportunity to offer value in some way, that's something I'm interested in as well. So a website or LinkedIn is the best way.
That's great. Victor, thanks so much for taking time to speak with me, and super impressed with the work that you're doing and the impact that you're having on people, impacting lives. So very cool work. So thanks again for being part of the Healthcast.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity, Phil. It's been a pleasure, and I look forward to staying in contact. And yeah, this has been awesome.
Thanks, man.